What if your deepest sensitivity wasn't a flaw, but a hidden kind of strength you've been trained to ignore? We've been sold a comforting lie about the empathic soul, that its highest purpose is to mend the brokenness of others. This seems noble, but it's a distraction from a far more potent archetypal truth. The empath does not exist to be a perpetual caretaker, endlessly pouring their essence into the voids of those around them. Their true, often terrifying role is to act as a living reflection of the world's unacknowledged darkness. That profound sensitivity is not a personal injury, it is a rite of passage. The pain you carry is not a malfunction, it is a guide. And if you dare to look beneath the compulsive need to fix everyone else, you will uncover a purpose. You were never meant to repair anything. You were meant to reveal it. So what is this collective shadow we all refuse to face? It is the accumulated, unseen residue of everything our civilization has suppressed, denied, and cast into oblivion. Every stifled fury, every exiled longing, every secret shame passed down through generations, from family lines to entire cultures. It coalesces there in the dark. And just as a single person has a hidden self, so too does humanity as a whole. The empath, in their quiet attunement, is the seismograph of the collective soul. They register what the rest of us have chosen to ignore. They grieve for what others have anesthetized. They sense the tremors of forces we pretend do not exist. Do not mistake this for fragility. It is quite the opposite. They are tasked with a monumental burden. Their duty is not to take away the hurt of others, but to stand as the one who experiences what others will not allow themselves to feel. In this light, the empath is not a traditional healer. They are an awakener, a psychic guardian at the gate of truths we've collectively abandoned. When I speak of this archetype, I am not merely describing a personality trait or a heightened emotional state. I am pointing to something timeless, universal, and deeply misread. It is the archetype of the reflecting pool, the vessel that shows the tribe its own fractures. The empath's suffering arises not just from their receptivity, but because they are positioned by a kind of spiritual design at the very core of society's unconscious mechanisms. And what they experience is often not their own. It is the reverberation of history's past, the cries of forebears silenced by pain, the imprinted guilt of ages etched into their very being. The empathic person often wonders, why do I feel this way? But they rarely confront the more frightening inquiry. Whose anguish is this that moves through me? You must see, the unconscious mind does not honor the borders of the individual. The ego wishes to believe in a separate self, but the deeper psyche recognizes no such walls. In visions, in symbols, in the body's own tremors, it communicates in the tongue of the collective, and the empath is its interpreter. From years of observation, I have seen that empaths frequently misinterpret their permeability as a personal failing. They assume they are damaged when, in reality, they are transparent to energies that most people are simply too shielded to detect. This misreading is not a mistake. It is part of the ordeal. One must journey into the labyrinth of uncertainty before they can arise as a bearer of ancient knowing. And this labyrinth, this domain of shadow, is not just a concept. It is a real territory within the psyche, a realm inhabited by what can be called autonomous psychic structures. These are semi-independent entities born from trauma and denial. They are not imaginary. They possess intention. They strive for manifestation. And when they are suppressed, they cast themselves outward onto reality. The empath, with their more open boundaries, becomes the unintended vessel for these projections. They sense the darkness not of one person, but of lineages, of communities, of entire eras. But within this lies the seed of their power. For if the empath can endure, if they can remain present with the discomfort long enough to decipher its message, they become alchemists of the unseen. They become those who do not flee from the gloom, but who transform it. This is not healing as it is commonly understood, it is revelation. And revelation is always disruptive, always unsettling, always a threat to the ego's delicate fictions. The collective shadow holds racism, violence, betrayal, yes, but it also contains luminous creativity, primal vitality, untamed ecstasy, and sacred wisdom long since forgotten. The empath, upon awakening, does not only mourn for suffering, they mourn for the soul's forgotten magnificence. They ache not merely from cruelty, but from the absence of the divine, the holy, the instinctual. To awaken the collective shadow is to illuminate what the culture has vowed to overlook. The empath becomes a psychic mirror not by accident, but by destiny. And this destiny is not a punishment. It is a covenant, a soul agreement made before entering this life, often misread until the later chapters, when the constructed self begins to fracture and the essential being emerges from the rubble. Many of you watching, those who have felt too much, carried weights that seemed impossible, been labeled oversensitive or dramatic, you are not here to correct the flaws of others. You are here to expose the falsehood that wholeness means being flawless. You are here to demonstrate that true integration begins with unconditional acknowledgement. That pain, when held without condemnation, becomes holy. Empathy without limits is self-sacrifice. But empathy combined with shadow work is a quiet uprising. Your sensitivity is not a wound. It is an initiation. You must be willing to enter the gloom, not as a casualty, but as a navigator. You must learn to distinguish between true compassion and enmeshment. For the unawakened empath merges with the feelings of others. They believe that to connect is to consume. But once conscious, they observe without becoming. They stand at the precipice and state, I witness you. I do not flee from you, but I am not you. This is the dawn of sovereignty for the empath. It is the moment they stop being absorbent and start becoming oracular. The symbol of the oracle is vital, for in the old stories, the oracle does not simply predict what will be. The oracle voices what is concealed. The oracle forever exists on the margin between realities, between worldviews, and often the oracle is persecuted for their vision. This, too, is part of the journey to be misjudged, even scorned, for showing what others are not yet prepared to see. But do not confuse the hardship of this road with being off path. It is initiation. The world resists those who stir it from slumber because awakening demands an ending. Death of delusions, death of naivete, death of the fabricated identity. And so the empath must undergo many such deaths of who they thought they were, of idealized hopes, of perfected love. But in each ending, something primordial is resurrected, not new but recalled. For the empath, at their essence, carries the memory of the ancestors. They are keepers of the records, remembering what the world has chosen to forget, and their anguish is the toll of that remembrance. When I have worked with individuals who embody this pattern, those who sense too deeply, whose struggles could not be explained by personal history alone, I knew I was in the presence of someone with a sacred charge. Not merely distressed, not merely hurt, but selected, chosen by the soul itself to carry the untold narratives of the world. And though they often came with anxiety, despair, even states of detachment, beneath these expressions was a radiance so intense it frightened them, because the empath is not afraid of other people. They are afraid of their own latent force, a power that, when misapplied, becomes entanglement, but when harmonized, becomes profound presence. A presence that can alter a space, that can unearth what has been hidden, that can stir old yearnings in those nearby. This is the mark of the awakened empath. They no longer feel the need to mend. They do not hurry to save. They simply perceive, and in their perceiving, others recall their own essence. This is the true medicine of the empath. Not curing through effort, but curing through existence. And this is why they were never meant to be assistants in the conventional sense. The gift is not assistance. It is disclosure. They are here to interrupt the world's dream. To awaken the collective shadow is to disturb the ego's fantasy of virtue, purity, and command. And no one will thank you for that, but the soul will. The soul thanks you when you utter the truth that everyone avoids, when you shed the tears that belong to an entire people, when you feel the sorrow of epochs and do not dull it but declare it. This is not self-pity. This is sacred labor. The ego will tell you that you are excessive. The culture will tell you that you are frail. But the psyche tells you that you are essential. The key to what? To synthesis, to the reuniting of what has been torn apart, for the empath holds the gold of the discarded pieces. They are the link between the familiar and the mysterious, the tame and the wild, the waking mind and the dreaming deep. And this is why the empath often feels between worlds, because they inhabit the liminal spaces, the thresholds and the visionary realms. They hear the unspoken, they feel the unshown. They remember what has not yet happened. Do not medicalize this. Do not diminish it to a syndrome. This is mysticism. This is initiation. To reside at the border between worlds is not cozy. The empath's nervous system was not crafted for coziness. It was crafted for permeability. This is not a biological error, but a necessity of spiritual design. It is the vessel that must be porous enough for the collective to flow through, and yet resilient enough not to fragment under the psychic load it bears. Most empaths falter not because they are weak, but because they have not yet recalled that what they are experiencing is not theirs personally. It is the ache of the world moving through them, seeking expression. Do you recall your dreams? I ask not as a clinician, but as one who seeks the numinous, for the dreams of empaths are not just private, they are mythic. Their nocturnal visions often bear symbols too vast to originate from a single personal unconscious. The dream of a falling tower, the vision of an earth mother shedding stones, the recurring motif of doors that will not open. These are not merely the reverberations of individual hurt. These are communications from the collective unconscious begging for recognition. It is not unusual for the empath to dream the dream of a nation, to hold in sleep what a population cannot bear in waking life. This is the burden of the seer. And when this capacity is unrecognized, the empath lives in a state of chronic inundation, not because reality is too intense, but because they are interpreting it through a personal lens, when what is required is symbolic understanding. Symbolism is the native language of the unconscious. It does not communicate in data. It communicates in pictures, in meaningful coincidences, in distortions, in paradox. And the empath, before their awakening, often misreads these messages as insanity. But insanity is simply sacred mystery incorrectly interpreted. When the empath starts to see symbolically, to comprehend their emotions, visions, and physical sensations as archetypal information, they cease being prey to experience and become apprentices of the soul. Let me provide an illustration. A person once came to me, haunted by a guilt she could not explain. No event in her life warranted the weight she carried. Her upbringing was largely free of major trauma. Her connections were stable. Yet she awoke each day with a profound sadness pressing on her heart. In her dreams, she was often running from archaic, crumbling temples, holding infants she did not know. In her waking hours, she shied from conflict, feared her own anger, and would often weep without clear cause. This was not sickness. This was a sacred message. Through the practice of engaging the imagination, we began to dialogue with the dream symbols, not as mere metaphors, but as living presences. She came to realize that the children she held in sleep were not her own, but the unmourned losses of her ancestral line. Her family, it emerged, had endured multiple conflicts, great displacements. She was the first to be born in a time of peace. And peace, paradoxically, had made the sorrow more acute. Her soul had been chosen to carry what had never been properly grieved. This is the empath's task: to lament what others cannot, to feel the pain that reason cannot validate, to become the channel for collective release. But again, this does not mean self-destruction. It means transfiguration. For when the empath learns to work with the shadows symbolically, not personally, they access a deeper intelligence. They no longer feel driven to rescue others, nor to shoulder more than they can contain. Instead, they stand as sacred witnesses, participants in the alchemy of remembrance. They do not heal by assimilation. They heal by integration. And what is integration if not the craft of wholeness? Wholeness does not mean being without flaw. It means the ability to hold the contradictions, to honor both light and shadow, bliss and sorrow, fury and gentleness, without collapsing into either. The empath, when whole, becomes the bridge between dualities. They become the transcendent function. I often describe the third thing born from the strain of opposites. They are not one or the other. They are both. This integration demands solitude. The empath must leave the clamor of the crowd to hear the murmur of the soul. Solitude is not isolation. It is the vessel in which the deeper self can surface. In myth, the initiates always journey into the wilderness, the dunes, the cavern. These are not places of penalty, but places of sight. The empath must learn to befriend the solitary part within, to withdraw not as avoidance, but as preparation. For when the empath returns from solitude, they do not come back empty. They return with insight, with truth, with new directives, and their mere presence becomes a catalyst, not because they lecture, but because they embody. They become the living antidote to unawareness, not by striving, but by being. This is why in elder cultures, the empathic ones were often the seers, the prophets, the dreamers. They were not viewed as sick. They were viewed as mediators between the seen and the unseen. Today, we medicate what ancient tribes consecrated. We suppress what older societies revered. The empath's distress is not proof of their brokenness. It is evidence of a culture that has forgotten how to honor the sacred, and the sacred always returns through the vessel of the body. The empath's body is a chart, a dowsing rod, a holy text. But most empaths are at war with their own flesh. They treat their bodily responses as